There's an abandoned town on the north shore of Lake Superior where you can still walk through the remains of houses that were once occupied by families, find old foundations disappearing beneath the trees, and pick pieces of broken dishes out of the shoreline. The town was called Jackfish. It was established in the late 1800s as a fishing community, but the arrival of the Canadian Pacific Railway changed everything. Jackfish had a natural harbor and became an important stopping point for coal ships supplying the steam locomotives traveling along the railway. For years, the town was bustling and busy. There were hundreds of people living there, along with a school, churches, stores, a railway station, and the Lakeview Hotel. During the summer months, hundreds of railway and dock workers could be working around the harbor. People built their lives in Jackfish. Children grew up there, fishermen went out onto Lake Superior, trains came through the station, and ships came into the harbor carrying the coal that kept the railway moving. Then, the railway stopped needing coal. Diesel locomotives began replacing the old steam engines, and in 1948, the last coal shipment was unloaded at Jackfish. The town's main industry was effectively finished. Fishing wasn't doing much better. Sea lamprey had devastated the lake trout population, which had been one of the foundations of the local fishing economy. Then the Trans-Canada Highway was built and went around Jackfish. There wasn't much left to keep the town alive. The Lakeview Hotel, which had once been one of the busiest buildings in the community, burned down in 1960. By that point, Jackfish had already been shrinking for years. 3 years later, almost everyone was gone. By October 1963, only 2 families were still living there. They left soon afterward, and Jackfish ceased to be a permanent community. What was left wasn't immediately demolished or cleared away. It was simply abandoned. Over the years, people took some of the usable lumber, buildings collapsed, trees grew through old foundations and around the remains of houses. The shoreline is probably one of the strangest places to look for evidence of the town. People still find pieces of the old community there. Broken plates, pieces of glass, and chunks of coal have been washed up along Lake Superior. Some of the dishes were manufactured hundreds of kilometers away and brought to Jackfish when the town was still alive. Now they're lying along the same shoreline where the people who used them once lived. That is the most unsettling part to me about Jackfish. We're not talking about some mine collapse, some terrible disaster that forced everyone to run. We're talking about a town that almost overnight became obsolete. One industry disappeared, then another. The railway changed, the highway passed somewhere else. Eventually, there weren't enough jobs or families left to justify keeping the community going. So the people packed up and left. The forest stayed, Lake Superior stayed, and Jackfish was left behind.